Sir James Douglas, known as the Black Douglas, was a companion of the Bruce through his many wars. He and his men had marched through Teviotdale and made camp near Jedburgh after a long fight, and Sir James, as was his custom, had looked around the tents and was now about to retire to bed. He stood in the moonlight, watching the camp all quiet in the dark, and he noticed from the corner of his eye an old woman approaching him. She hobbled on a stick and carried a bundle in her hand. She approached him and said, "Are you he that is called the Black Douglas?" "I am, good woman. For what do you seek me?" "Well, I've a debt to pay," said she, "and I think you can help me. For here are 3 arrows," and she undid the bundle. "This is stained with the blood of my eldest son, this the blood of my second son, and this the blood of my youngest. Their deaths have left me childless, and I would see the arrows returned in the manner to which they reached me. And who but the Black Douglas has the strongest arm in Scotland? I'm very sorry, good woman, for the loss of your sons, but I cannot help you. I'm no archer. I fight with the sword and the axe and the dagger. You must apply to some other for your mission." "Well," says she, "I cannot take these arrows home, so I'll leave them with you, and I will see you again on St. James's Eve." The Douglas retired to his tent, but he could not sleep. The thoughts of the old woman and her strange request stayed with him. He packed the 3 arrows in a quiver in his baggage and continued on his way. In the morning came the news that one of his great enemies, Sir Thomas Richmond, had crossed the border and was harrying the lands. Douglas rallied his men and rode out to meet him. The land that they were passing through had a narrow defile, and the Douglas instructed his men to create barriers and bundles and weave together birch twigs so that the English could not escape. He then lured them into the valley, and in the narrowness of the pass a desperate battle ensued. The English could not bring their cavalry to bear fully because of the narrowness of the terrain, and the Douglas's archers laid waste to them. In the heat of the combat, the Black Douglas sought out Sir Thomas Richmond and slew him with a dagger. Some days later, the news came that a knight of Gascony, Edmund de Caillon, was in Teviotdale and running for the border. Before leaving, he had said it was a pity that he had not met the Black Douglas, for he was sure to slay him in combat. The Douglas, deciding that he must gratify the Gascon in this matter, immediately set out on a forced march, and just across the border caught up with them. The Gascon tried to flee, but eventually shame provided the place of courage, and he turned to face Black Douglas. But all in vain. In single combat he was slain. "So much then," said Sir James, "for the boast of the Gascon." A similar fate befell Sir Ralph Neville. He came into the borders and harried the land, boasting that the Black Douglas was afeard to face him. The Black Douglas rode out and pursued him, and in the heat of battle they sought each other out. A desperate combat ensued, for Neville was a doughty fighter, but in the end the Douglas was triumphant. And on the evening after the battle, he retired to his tent. As the sun set, he saw a familiar figure, the old woman hobbling with her stick, coming towards him. "It is St. James's Eve," she said. "What do you have for me?" "I have nothing, my good woman. I'm sorry. I told you I was no archer. You must apply to some other to fulfil your request." "Give me back the arrows then," says she. So the Douglas had them brought from his tent and opened the quiver, and all 3 arrows were broken into pieces. "So then," said the old woman, "the Wyrd is fulfilled. My first son was killed by the armies of Sir Thomas Richmond, the second by Edmund de Caillon, and the third by the archers of Ralph Neville. I see that you've slain all three, and I thank you for that. My debt is repaid.